So, if you have a Bible, and I hope you brought one with you, because you're going to need it, and I don't care if you use your device tonight, because we're going to be all over the place in one book. We're continuing our series, Meet Your Maker. So, some of you have mentioned, or I've actually heard from some of you about this series that has been fun, but the logo here reminds you of something else. Those of us that have seen the movies, call it out. Which one does this remind you of?
Godfather.
Godfather, that's right. There's a reason for that. There's a reason we picked that one, because in that movie, there's like one guy, he's in charge, right? That's right. We called it the Godfather. But for our intents and purposes, our goal in this series is to teach, to demonstrate a couple things. So I always want to show this slide to you. It's my favorite. That the highest science, the loftiest speculation, the mightiest philosophy which can ever engage the attention of a child of God is the name, the nature, the person, the work, the doings, and the existence of the great God whom he calls Father. And I wonder, as I put that up there, how many of us really pay attention to the last phrase, in the existence of the great God of whom he calls his Father. If you've never had the opportunity and the joy of digging in and reading some of Spurgeon's sermons and his notes, I would encourage it. You know, like, you're crazy, I'm not going to do that. They're easy to find. You can go online and download a good number of them, where you can find them in local libraries. He has some of the most awesome language to use when he writes, to speak of the person of God and the impact of God on our lives. So if you're interested in studying more of what he has, let me know and I can point you in the right direction. So a couple questions we tried to answer. How can we know who God is really? We looked at the reality that what? God is loving from last week, right? You guys remember that? He's actively loving. What else? First week, God is holy. So if we want to know what it is to know who God is, we have to look at the person of Jesus, because Jesus was entirely set apart. So we studied Jesus for a little bit. Tonight, need some water. Tonight we're looking at God is all powerful. There's one thing that I think would help out all of our hearts, including mine, rest just a little bit in the middle of a crazy world when everything seems to be going absolutely nuts, is that there's an all-powerful God still on the throne. How many of you guys have had a time when you doubted God's power? Yeah? Some of you. This side's paying attention. Over here, we're not really. And in the middle, we're just not really going to say anything. Okay, let me take a step back from that. Have you ever doubted God's existence because you didn't see him doing anything? Yeah? Okay, that's a better question. Now, if you can reason in your mind that God exists, right? You guys agree that God exists in the room? Most of you would say, I hope all of us. Well, if you don't, that's fine. We can get there. But you believe in God. Good job. Thank you, Michaela. She's speaking up in the front. Come on. Woo! Amen. It's the amen section, right? Hey, look out. You're getting all fired up on me. It's enough. All right, so God is all powerful. If we know that God exists, somebody give her a white handkerchief or a tissue. Woo! We can wait. So God exists. And if God exists and he's in control, then he has to be all powerful. And there's a guy in my life when I was growing up. His name was Mark. Called him Uncle Mark. And Uncle Mark was Uncle Mark was this really, really cool guy. He liked to build things with his hands. And I would go over to his house when I was 3. My parents used to help him out on their farm. In Florida, they would farm strawberries and cantaloupe and all kinds of cucumbers and all kinds of stuff. So I was there all the time. And I was like 4 years old. Like 4 or 5 grade in size. And he put a tool belt on me. Like it was a modified kid's tool belt, and had a hammer, some nails, right? And a little tiny tape measure. And we were outside one day. This is so funny. And when I was in Florida, he reminded me of this, and I had forgotten it. He was building a barn. I was like 5. And my mom entrusted me to this man's care. Okay? Now, in your mind, can you just picture like the manliest guy has the beard? He's working outside in Florida in the summer, building a barn. Like he's just like, he's got muscles and he's awesome. And he's building this barn. And I'm like, yes, I get to hang out with him. And he's going to put me on the rafters. I'm 5. The barn is 20 feet up. my mom comes up. She goes, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm with him. We're building, Mom. I have my hammer. I got my nails. And I'm going, and my hammer was like that big. And every time I hit it, the nail would laugh at me. Right? That's really funny. But Mark put me in these awesome positions to do and learn stuff. And in my mind, there was nothing he couldn't fix. Nothing he couldn't fix. And I called him Uncle Mark and I asked him a question that day. It was really hot. And he had done something that people in Florida tend to do when it's really hot and they're working outside. He was working without his shirt. He took his shirt off. He was sweating manly. And I looked at him and I said, "Uncle Mark, can I take my shirt off too?" I'm 5, right? Everything is in question, right, when you're little. And I'm thinking, he's all powerful. He can fix anything. Like, if anybody can do it, he'll say I can. If he says I can, it's fine. So picture little 5-year-old me with a little tool belt, little hammer, on the rafters with no shirt on because I'm with him, right? Everything was good as long as Uncle Mark said so. Fast forward to when I'm 17 years old. We used to build a float for our local festival. Had this big parade. The Strawberry Festival was a big deal in my hometown. I know you guys like Strawberry Festival. Trust me, it's a big deal. Like we have Strawberry Queen. They get a scholarship. It's crazy. So we used to build a float for our church, our youth group, and it was done at his house. So we took the frame of this float, we took everything off of it, took it down to the metal frame. And I'm helping rebuild this thing. Now, I knew, set this for you, at the corner, like the front corner, and I'm holding down a piece of plywood. It was bowed, and we had to drill into this steel. Now, I'm holding the plywood, right? What do you think is happening right next to my hand? Somebody, yeah. In my mind, I'm thinking, Uncle Mark can fix anything, right? I'm helping. I'm 17. I'm like little 5-year-old me again. Is this okay, boss? Right? I'm standing there and holding it. I'm thinking, this is going to be really bad if that drill jumps off that screw because my hand is right next to it. And no sooner had I thought it, that screw hit a weld in the steel, and that drill jumped off that screw and drilled my finger right into the plywood. This finger, right, my middle finger, the whole side of my finger came off. And it was hanging, right? And you know that moment when you're so hurt, like you don't even want to look at it? You ever had that moment? Some of us have in this room. I'm not looking at anybody in particular. Some of us have had that moment. Remember a couple years ago, Emma? Okay. Anyway, those of us in the room that night remember it clearly. The scream was awesome. So I'm so scared. My hand is throbbing, and I just immediately jumped up, and I'm like, oh, I hurt myself. And he said, well, look at it. And I said, I don't want to, because I'm hurt really bad. And as soon as you acknowledge it, you have to do something about it. And I just wanted to ignore it, like a little scrape. I'm fine. I looked down. Guys, I'm not kidding. My nail was folded over, and this side of my finger is like exposed. I'm sorry. You guys are like, anybody eat before you came in here? Okay, you're going to eat later? Awesome. All right, so listen. So this side of my finger is hanging off. And I look at Uncle Mark, and he goes, just look at it. And I went, what's wrong with me? Like bleeding, right? Have you seen the movies where it just squirts, right? That's happening, okay? And he's going, just look at your hand. You're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. And he looks at my dad. He goes, wow. And when he said that, the all-powerful Uncle Mark, who knew everything, that he could fix anything, he couldn't fix me. He couldn't fix me. My dad puts me in the car, in the truck that was mine, that I couldn't drive because my hand's busted. It was a stick shift. And I get in the truck, and he's like, just hold your hand up. It'll stop pulsing. I promise. Just get it above your heart. The pain will cease. It'll be okay. I'm holding my hand, and I'm like, Dad, I'm going to pass out, right? I'm scared I'm lost so much blood, I'm going to pass out. We get to the hospital. The nurse, when she triages me, she goes, how did you do that? I said, being stupid, right? That's all I could say. It was a dumb mistake, and as soon as I thought about it, it happened, and I looked at the guy that could fix anything, who I asked when I was 5, can I take my shirt off like you to work? See, he's not all powerful, is he? He couldn't stop that from happening. He couldn't fix my finger. I had to go to someone else. But here's why I tell you that story. We have people in our mind and in our life that we consider to be, and they're pretty close to all-powerful. he told a story when I was down there a couple weeks ago for that funeral. That he recently had surgery about 6 months ago, and you would never know it to look at him, but they had to operate on the vertebrae right in the back of his neck. Creepiest thing he told me. They cut him here and rocked his head back. So, yeah, some of y'all are doing math in your brain. Yeah, my boy was like, what? And they hooked him up right here. They worked on his neck, and then they closed him back up. And he's in the hospital, right? Where this is going somewhere. He's in the hospital, and he starts to choke because his throat's all jacked up, right? He starts to choke, and then he looks at the nurse like in this desperate plea. Can you please do something to fix it? And all she does is go and open up a hairline. Right in his throat. And he starts to breathe and he starts to feel better. He, all-powerful Uncle Mark, is in the hands of somebody more powerful than him. But all of us in this room, regardless of our circumstance, are in the hands of an all-powerful God. And what we're going to see tonight from this series, that God alone is the most supreme being that exists. God alone. Doesn't matter how strong and powerful I think Uncle Mark is, because he can work without his shirt on. He knows how to build stuff. He couldn't fix my finger. He couldn't fix his neck. See, God is all-powerful. So here we go. Sometimes we forget that. And I'll say this, and some of y'all are going to be like, what do you mean? For good reason. Sometimes we forget that God is all-powerful because in the midst of our life, it can be easy to forget. Let's look at the story of Job. Turn to Job chapter 1. We're going to be in the entire book of Job tonight, so I hope you brought snacks. We're going to be here for a couple hours. I'm kidding. None of you want to eat now. No, the trophy's still in my office. All right, so Job chapter 1, verse 13. This is really fun. One day, when Job's sons and daughters were feasting and drinking wine at the oldest brother's house, a messenger came to Job and said, the oxen were plowing and the donkeys were grazing nearby, and the Sabaeans attacked and made off with them. They put the servants to the sword, and I am the only one who has escaped to tell you. So, most of his possessions are gone. Verse 16, while he was still speaking, another messenger came and said, the fire of God fell from the heavens and burned up the sheep and the servants, and I am the only one who has escaped to tell you. And while he was still speaking, another messenger came and said, the Chaldeans formed 3 raiding parties and swept down on your camels and made off with them. They put the servants to the sword, and I am the only one who has escaped to tell you. So far, all of Job's earthly possessions, he was one of the wealthiest men around. He loses it all. This is when it gets worse. While he was still speaking, another messenger came and said, your sons and your daughters are feasting and drinking wine at the oldest brother's house. When suddenly a mighty wind swept in from the desert and struck the 4 corners of the house, it collapsed on them and they are dead. And I am the only one who has escaped to tell you. Does he have reason to doubt God's power? You think? A little bit? Job chapter 1, verse 1. Listen to this, read along. It's not going to be on the screen, but I want you to just pay attention here. There's a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job, and that man was blameless and upright, one who feared God and turned away from evil. There were born to him 7 sons and 3 daughters. 10 children. 10, right? Anybody know a family with 10? I do. I know a family with 10. It's awesome to watch them walk across the Oprah field, too. And they own it. Number 3, he possessed 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, and 500 female donkeys, and very many servants, so that this man was the greatest of all the people of the East. His sons used to go and hold a feast in the house of each one on his day, and they would send and invite their 3 sisters to eat and drink with them. When the days of the feast had run their course, Job would sin and consecrate them, and he would rise early in the morning and offer burnt offerings according to the number of them all. For Job said, it may be that my children have sinned and cursed God in their hearts. Thus Job did continually. This guy was a man's man. He had it all and he loved his family. And he lost it all. He had good reason to doubt God's power, according to my mind. I mean, just think about it for a minute. What would happen if you lost everything in one day? Back to back to back to back. Everything. All in one day, it's gone. Would you doubt God's power? I recently had a conversation with someone who said, you know what? I don't even want to talk about Jesus. I'm so angry with him. And here's why. And they started listing all of the reasons why they were angry with God. And I thought to myself, man, if I lived as if God had no power, then I would be pretty exhausted myself and not want to talk about him. But here's what happens in Job's life. All of those things get taken from him. Here's the truth. Even people around us can help us in our memory loss of just how powerful God is. You ever notice that? You ever thought, man, if I just share with someone my struggle, they will encourage me? And then you talk to that person, and they don't encourage you at all. They actually join you in your misery. You know anybody like that? Like, you want to crawl in your bed and eat chocolate all night, and they just crawl in the bed and eat chocolate with you, and they're not even encouraging you. Like, they're like, yeah, we're going to weep and cry about this together. And some of that's okay, right? Like if your goldfish dies, or, you know, like you got in trouble for lying to your parents, you should probably crawl in your bed and not eat chocolate, just weep and cry in sackcloth and ashes and repent. But, some of y'all understand that. But, face it, there are some people in your life that don't help you in realizing what God has done for you. As a matter of fact, they actually encourage you to see what God has taken from you. You have friends in your life that are not necessarily encouraging, but they're not really helpful either. You just look for someone to encourage you a little bit, and they just go, yeah, not really going to help. I'm just going to tell you how bad life is. Look at what his wife says. Job chapter 2, verse 9. This is fun. His wife said to him, are you still maintaining your integrity? Curse God and die. Come on now. Like, that's not helping. The man's already lost everything, and his wife goes, hey, bro, you need to just curl up in a corner and give it up. Because you're the problem. That's not a wife that I want to be with. I'm just being honest with you. Right now, ladies, don't say that to your husband. Later, that will go bad for you. I'm just saying. But his wife said to him, are you still maintaining your integrity? In the midst of all of that, look at verse 20 of chapter 1. This is why she can say this. Chapter 1, verse 20. Then Job arose and tore his robe and shaved his head and fell on the ground and worshipped. He stopped everything and he worshipped. He recognized that God was still on the throne. Even though everyone around him was gone. Verse 21, and he said, naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked shall I return. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. In all this, Job did not sin or charge God with wrong. Here's something that I want you to write down. The depth of our faith is proven over time and testing. The depth of your faith will be proven over time and testing. And the reality is that the more you're tested and the more time that passes, you will either grow more weary or more in wonder of how much God loves you. When I studied this and I looked at this story, I thought about my family and I thought about how in the world could I lose everything that I own and everything that I hold dear? Would I respond the same way? That's why Job's in the Bible, by the way. He's a huge encouragement to show you probably what you wouldn't do, but what you hope you would. Right? God is all-powerful and good. See, Job forgets the goodness of God and wishes he was dead. Now, he walks through. We're going to move through some passages really quick, so you can just look up on the screen. You can try to follow along. See, Job wishes he was dead. Now, I'm changing screens here because this is really helpful. He wishes he was dead. And in Job chapter 3, verse 3, look at what he says. Let the day perish on which I was born, and the night that it said a man is conceived. Verse 10, because it did not shut the doors of my mother's womb, nor hide trouble from my eyes. And in verse 11, listen to this one. Why did I not die at birth, come out from the womb and expire? Why did the knees receive me, or why did I nurse? Why would I not lay down in vain and be quiet? I would have slept, then I would have been at rest. He's begging to not exist. Now I could go really, really far with this. But I could give you a ton of reasons why he exists. What each of us in this room do. And I want to say something right here, and I'm going to say it in passing, and I hope you catch it. Everybody look up here at me. I know that there are things in culture that encourage looking toward the end of your life to get you away from whatever you're facing. I won't mention them directly, but you know what I'm talking about. But there are way more reasons to live than there are to die. There are way more reasons to live than there are to die. And one is because God has crafted you, and He's loving you, and He has a purpose for your existence. It's not wasted. And this is what Job faces. He wishes he was dead. He doesn't understand. The next section that I want you to see here is that Job, he doesn't understand what God is doing. He doesn't understand God's goodness. He forgets all of these things. Now look at what he says. Verse 6:28, he starts to whine and complain like a lot of us do. But now be pleased to look at me, for I will not lie to your face. Please turn, let no injustice be done. Turn now, my vindication is at stake. He's saying, God, where are you? I don't understand. This isn't fair. Is there any injustice on my tongue? Cannot my palate discern the cause of my calamity? Saying, I can't fathom what's going on in my life. I haven't done anything. You ever known a family to have perfectly healthy children? They go to the doctor one day and one comes home diagnosed with acute leukemia. They don't even know how to trace and name because it's brand new. I have a good friend named Chad. He's a pastor in Brandon, Florida. His son Jace been battling cancer for 2 years, and they named it after him because it's a rare case. And they don't know his outcome. Chad's a pastor. 3 beautiful boys. Does he deserve it? Why do bad things happen to good people? This isn't a new question. Job forgets the goodness of God and accuses God of punishing him. This is fun. If I sin, what do I do to you, you watcher of mankind? He's starting to get kind of snarky in his questions. Why have you made me your mark? He feels like he's the only one getting treated this way. Why have I become a burden to you? Why do you not pardon my transgression and take away my iniquity? For now I shall lie in the earth. You will seek me, but I shall not be. He says, my life is terrible. God, will you just take me? Make it stop. He forgets the goodness of God and is openly bitter against Him. I loathe my life. You know what that means? Like, there's hate, and then there's like a million times hate, and that's loathe. Like, I loathe my life, my existence. I will give free utterance to my complaint. I have had it. I am done, is what he's saying. I will speak in the bitterness of my soul. And there's a whole lot of complaints he lists here, and I don't have time to go through them all. But as you walk this story through Job's life, he has all kinds of reasons to feel this way. Job forgets the goodness of God, and this is where a lot of us rest, and I'm going to spend some time here. He, like a lot of us, blame God for when times are hard and blame ourselves when things are great. Think about that for a second. Who do you turn to first to give glory when glory is due, when life is going great? I have an older car, but my car has a sunroof, and this time of year I love it. I roll the windows down, the sunroof goes open, and it's a fun experience, right? You're like, yep, that's freedom. And there are days when I open the sunroof and I'm cruising and I don't have a care in the world. And those days are very few, by the way. But they happen. There's like 2 hours a week that happens. And I get in my car and there's nothing on my mind and I'm driving. And that's when I feel like I'm resting, right? And how often do we have those experiences where complete joy and happiness hits our soul and we credit ourselves for the happiness and joy. But when it's hard, we blame God for not being there. Guilty. Hey, God, this is bad. Why am I going through this? Hey, God, why aren't you answering me? Where are you? It's your fault. It's your fault, God, that I'm going through this. It's not because of anything I've done. It has nothing to do with you just allowing me to be tested and tried to deepen my faith. It has everything to do with you failing me. But ask the beasts, and they will teach you, the birds of the heavens, and they will tell you, or the bushes of the earth, and they will teach you. And the fish of the sea will declare to you, who among all these does not know that the hand of the Lord has done this? Direct blame. Direct blame. God has done this. Everyone knows. You ever felt that way in the midst of your struggle? You're frustrated about something. Everyone can see it. Can't you just join me in my pity? When the hard times come, we wonder where God is. But there's never a moment during our difficulty that God is not sovereign over and working in our pain. So the story turns. The story turns for Job. Look at what he says. Behold, I go forward, but he is not there, and backward, but I do not perceive him. You ever felt that way? It doesn't matter what's going on in your life, but you wonder about God's existence. And you just want him to show up. And you don't see him. On the left hand, when he is working, I do not see him. I do not behold him. He turns to the right hand, but I don't see him. But he knows the way that I take. When he has tried me, look at this. Don't miss this. When he has tried me, I shall come out as gold. Do you know the process of refining gold? You know what this looks like? They take raw gold. And they put it into a container and they heat it up. Actually, it's actually silver. Silver and gold, they do this. But there are impurities mixed inside that metal. And when it gets hot, the impurities rise to the top and they scrape it off. And they scrape it off again. And they cast away the impurities and they cast it away again. Why do you think the heat is necessary? Because that's the only way the impurities can be burned out. It's the same thing that happens in us. When he has tried me, I shall come out as gold. So here's the truth. God's power is on display even when we can't see him. So Job has a turning point in his life. He realizes, hey, I know all of this has a purpose, and God has a plan for all of this. I just can't see it. And he makes some really silly comments. So I'm just going to put this up there, Job 38 through 41. And I'm going to turn and I want to read some for you. You guys read this before? Oh, yeah, get ready. This is one of my favorites. If you're looking on with somebody, just focus on the words. Just close your eyes if you have to. Do not be distracted. I want you to hear this. Job. Let me see. Job 38, verse 1. Job's been complaining. Where are you, God? I don't know. I can't see you. I've forgotten that you're here. Job answers God, or the Lord answers Job. This is what he says in verse 1. Then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, who is this that darkens counsel by words without knowledge? Dressed for action like a man. I will question you, and you make it known to me. Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding. Who determined its measurements? Surely you know. Or who stretched the line upon it? On what were its bases sunk, and who laid its cornerstone? When the morning stars sang together, and all of the sons of God shouted for joy. Or who shut in the sea with doors when it burst out from the womb? When I made clouds its garment, and thick darkness its swaddling band. And prescribed limits for it, and set bars and doors, and said, thus far shall you come, and no further, and here shall your proud waves be stayed. Have you commanded the morning since your days began, and caused the dawn to know its place, that I might take hold of the skirts of the earth, and the wicked be shaken out of it? It is changed like clay under the seal, and its features stand out like a garment. From the wicked their light is withheld, and their uplifted arm is broken. Have you entered into the springs of the sea, or walked in the recesses of the deep? Have the gates of death been revealed to you? Or have you seen the gates of deep darkness? Have you comprehended the expanse of the earth? Declare if you know all of this. Here's what he says. Hey, guess what, bro? I made it all. And not only that, I made you. I think my shoulders are big enough to carry you. I've never left you. I've only carried you. See, helpful reminders are needed to see that God is all-powerful. He continues, chapter 39, verse 2. Can you number the months that they fulfill? Or do you know the time when they give birth? When they crouch, bring forth their offspring, and are delivered of their young? Their young ones become strong. They grow up in the open. They go out and do not return to them. Who has let the wild donkey go free? Who has loosed the bonds of the swift donkey? To whom I have given the arid plain for his home and the salt land for his dwelling place. And he lists all of creation. And then he gets to the challenge in chapter 40, verse 6. Then the Lord answered Job again. Dress for action like a man, I will question you. You make it known to me. Will you even put me in the wrong? Will you condemn me that you may be in the right? Have you an arm like God? And can you thunder with a voice like his? See what he just did? I wonder how many times in our lives God is just waiting to respond that way. So I'm going to be completely honest with you. There have been days I deserve that. Seasons. Chapter 40, verse 3. Going back about this challenge. Here's what Job answered the Lord after being taken to the woodshed a bit. Then Job answered the Lord and said, Behold, and hear this. Everybody listen to this. Behold, I am of small account. What shall I answer you? I lay my hand on my mouth. I have spoken once and I will not answer twice. But I will proceed no further. The reminder brings Job to a unique place. Chapter 42, verse 1. Then Job answered the Lord and said, I know that you can do all things, and that no purpose of yours can be thwarted. Who is this that hides counsel without knowledge? Therefore I have uttered what I did not understand, things too wonderful for me which I did not know. Please hear me when I say this. And it's a lot. It's a whole chapter in the Old Testament. You're like, why are we doing this? Because I think it's helpful for us in the midst of crazy seasons. School's ending. Graduations are happening. I don't understand what's going on. My own life, things are nuts. I'm telling you, it's crazy. And it's easy for all of us in the midst of craziness to forget who God is and how strong he is and how much he cares for each of us. He took an entire book to remind Job. How long will it take for you and me to remember? Will it take a mission trip? Will it take a camp? Will it take a night on Wednesday? Will it take a conversation about Jesus to change your view? I love Job's response. Therefore, I've uttered what I did not understand. See, God, you are infinite, I'm not. You're all powerful, and I'm not. Things too wonderful for me which I did not know. Hear and I will speak. I will question you and you make it known to me. Verse 5 is huge. Listen. I had heard of you. I had heard of you. You hear that? I had heard of you. I had heard stories about you. I had conceived and heard things said about you by the hearing of the ear. But now my eye sees you. And if I could just kind of put this in context, God is speaking to him, but he's also revealed all of creation is under his control. Not only does he see him, he sees his authority. He sees him for who he is. But now my eye sees you. Therefore, I despise myself. You ever felt small? How big do you think he feels? Shaking his fist at God, where are you? You've taken everything from me. Now I despise myself and repent in dust and ashes. The purpose of pain and struggle in our lives is to reveal the all-powerful God who carries us through it. And I heard this. This is not original. This is, I borrowed this. If we can trust him with our eternity, we can trust him with our everyday. If he's strong enough to carry you into eternity, he's strong enough to carry you through your everyday. So here's my question. It's one of the final nights this year. Meet your Maker. Have you seen just a small picture of how big and powerful God is, how all-powerful He is. There's nothing that happens in your life that's away from His control. He is not lost. It's not forgotten. It's not for nothing. All He's asking is we trust Him with our everyday. Have you done that? Do you do that every morning? Wake up every day. God, I trust You with today. I don't know what it looks like. I don't know what You're going to do. But I trust You already. Or do we wake up in the morning and say, God, if You do this, I will trust You. But if You don't, I'm going to blame You. Look at what happened to Job. God rebukes his friends who encouraged him to wallow in his self-pity. Verse 10 in chapter 42, and the Lord restored the fortunes of Job when he had prayed for his friends. And the Lord gave Job twice as much as he had before. Then came to him all his brothers and sisters and all who had known him before, and ate bread with him in his house. And they showed him sympathy and comforted him for all the evil that the Lord had brought upon him. And each of them gave him a piece of money and a ring of gold. And the Lord blessed the latter days of Job more than its beginning. And he had 14,000 sheep, 6,000 camels, 1,000 yoke of oxen, and 1,000 female donkeys. He had also 7 sons and 3 daughters. And he called the name of their first daughter Jemima, and the name of the second Keziah, and the name of the third Karen-Hapuk. And in all the land there were no women so beautiful as Job's daughters. And their father gave them an inheritance among their brothers. And after this, Job lived 140 years and saw his sons and his sons' sons 4 generations. Verse 17. And Job died, an old man full of days. Why did he die with all of that stuff? Why did God restore what he had taken? Because Job came to a point and said, listen, I recognize You, I submit to You, and I'll follow You, and I'll trust You. And I'm not promising you we'll have millions of dollars and a huge family and a happy life, but I can promise you this, that the depth of your faith and my faith will be proven over time and testing. The question is what we will do in the midst of that testing. Will we trust God as all-powerful? Or will we blame God for not being present? Let's pray together. God, I thank You so much for this night. I thank You for Your word. I thank You for the story of Job, this narrative that displays Your power, but also Your grace, and allowing Your servant to learn more about You and to restore Your servant as a sign of favor. God, I pray that each person in this room would be a person that surrenders to You, that acknowledges You as all-powerful and trusts in You even when life is hard and it's uncertain and it's not clear. Help us to see that we will come out as gold when we allow You to do Your work on us. Deepen our faith in You. We thank You for this night that we've had together. I thank You for each student in this room. We pray these things in Jesus' good name.